Our next speaker is the Chief of Naval Operations. She is not only responsible for the $203 billion per year Navy budget, she's also responsible for preparing the Navy for the China fight. Please welcome CNO Admiral Lisa Franchetti.
All right, well, Jim, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to be here. It is great to be here at my very first McAleese Defense Program Conference. I really am honored to join all of you and be amongst the exceptional mix of civilians and military leaders that are part of this year's agenda. And it's really an incredible honor to lead our Navy team. Over 600,000 active and reserve sailors are Navy civilians as the 33rd Chief of Naval Operations. Let me start by saying that I could not be more proud of our Navy team or more focused on delivering the Navy that our nation needs to get after our critically important mission. You know, it's a mission that the 2023 NDAA adjusted to more fully reflect what the nation needs us to do, both in peacetime, when we are to promote the national security interests and prosperity of the United States, and in wartime, when we are to carry out prompt and sustained combat operations incident to the sea. This is a mission that we don't do alone. Thanks to the work of our great team, of our Marine Corps teammates, of our Coast Guard teammates, and the work done by many of you here, our Navy is the most powerful Navy in the world. Together with the Marine Corps and the Coast Guard, we operate far forward, around the clock, around the world, from seabed to space, in cyberspace, in the information environment, to promote prosperity and security, to deter aggression, and provide options every day to our nation's decision makers. You know, nearly 90% of the global economy moves by sea. Each day, roughly 95% of international communications and $10 trillion worth of financial transactions transit via undersea fiber optic cables. In the US alone, seaborne trade carries more tonnage and value than any other mode of transportation, generating $5.4 trillion annually and supporting 31 million American jobs. As we meet today, the rules-based international order is under threat in every ocean. And as America relies on the sea, the role of our Navy is growing, and it's more consequential every day. Just look at the last 6 months. Our Navy is forward, and we are operating in situations that are dynamic and often kinetic. In the Middle East, the US-led Operation Prosperity Guardian, a defensive coalition of more than 20 nations, continues to provide international maritime security in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. It's our Navy team that's leading the way. It includes our destroyers like Carney, Laboon, Mason, and Gravely, and fighter squadrons from the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, who have worked tirelessly to ensure the free flow of commerce. Together, they have downed over 200 UAVs, as well as many cruise missiles, and for the first time in history, anti-ship ballistic missiles. Many of those same forces are working alongside several allies and partners, and they're launching strikes that are designed to degrade and diminish Houthi capability to continue these attacks. If you look further abroad in the Eastern Mediterranean, the Bataan Readiness Group and the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit and the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group before them have sent a clear message of deterrence to those who may seek to escalate the conflict beyond Gaza. And in Europe, for the last 2 years plus, the Navy has been part of the unified response to Russia's horrific and unjustifiable aggression against the sovereign nation of Ukraine. In the Indo-Pacific, the Carl Vinson and the Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Groups, along with ships from the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, have just recently conducted a multi-large deck event in the Philippine Sea. And today, the America Amphibious Readiness Group, with the 31st MEU embarked, is wrapping up exercise Iron Fist with Japan, working ashore and in the waters near their Southwest islands. Our Navy is definitely in high demand. But as Secretary Austin has said, the United States is the most powerful country on earth. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. And that is true for the US Navy. No other Navy operates at this scale or can build, train, deploy, and sustain such a lethal, distributed maritime force. And I think all of this is a testament to the hard work and commitment to excellence over time by many people in this room, those online, and the teams that you all represent. But as good as this story is, I know that we cannot rest on our laurels. The threats are real, and they are growing. We need to move with purpose and urgency. It's a message that I made clear in January when I released a paper, America's Warfighting Navy. The paper talks about who we are, what we do, and where we're going. And it lays out my 3 priorities of warfighting, warfighters, and the foundation that supports them. The first is warfighting. That's about delivering decisive combat power. The second is warfighters, and that's about strengthening our Navy team. And the third is the foundation. It's the foundation that supports them, the warfighters and the warfighting, by investing in our infrastructure, by building relationships, aligning our resources, and quite simply, always being ready. When I think about who we are the sailors and the civilians who have answered our nation's call to service, and we lead every day with honor, courage, and commitment. And when I think about what we do, we're here to preserve the peace, to respond in crisis, and win decisively in war if called to do so. When I think about where we're going, I know that we must move rapidly to stay ahead. The battlefields of tomorrow will be incredibly complex, and they demand that we view everything we do today through a warfighting lens. Our adversaries are adapting new technology and developing novel operational concepts. They are working to undermine our critical strengths and develop their own warfighting advantage. To stay ahead, our sailors, alongside our Marines and Coast Guardsmen, must be the very best warfighters in the world. And we must develop and deliver to those warfighters the best systems, weapons, and platforms that will deter and defeat any adversary, anytime, anywhere. And there's no time to waste. To get where we need to go, we've got to put more players on the field. And when I talk about more players, I'm not just talking about numbers of platforms, although the numbers do matter. And every single study since 2016 has said that we need a larger Navy, and we do. But it's also about the broader warfighting ecosystem that we're part of, that will fight and win as a joint force alongside our allies and partners. When I talk about more players on the field, it's about getting the platforms we've contracted for delivered on time and on cost. It's about getting our ships and our submarines in and out of maintenance on time and on cost. It's about stewardship. The Navy that we have today will largely be the Navy that we're going to have for the next 10 years. We've got to be good stewards, and we've got to keep our platforms serving as long as possible with decisive combat power and all the capabilities that they need. It's also about using what we have in new ways. So we've got to think, act, and operate differently with the fleet that we have today. I think if you look at Ukraine and you look at all the battlefield innovation, we need to think about how do we do the battlefield innovation, but now, before the battle. More players is also about accelerating the design, the development, and the delivery of the Navy's future hybrid fleet. We're focusing on expanding the reach, the depth, and the lethality of our conventionally manned fleet through disruptive and emerging technologies, and that includes unmanned systems. These systems have enormous potential to multiply our combat power by complementing our existing fleet of ships, submarines, and aircraft through manned-unmanned teaming, especially in areas like maritime surveillance and reconnaissance, in mine countermeasures, seabed exploration, and carrier air-wing support. One of the other ways we're working to quickly identify and get new technology into the hands of our warfighters is through our recently stood up Disruptive Capabilities Office, an office which reports directly to me and the Secretary of the Navy. And finally, it's about how we're increasing interoperability and information sharing with allies and partners. But more players is not enough. They must be ready players. More ready players on the field means platforms with the right capabilities, the right weapons, the right sustainment, and it means people with the right skills, tools, training, and a winning mindset. During the last year and a half, I've had a really great opportunity to get out and meet and visit with many stakeholders across our Navy team, our warfighters, as well as folks in industry, people who are making real and lasting contributions to our Navy's mission. Our Navy partners with over 18,000 contractors across approximately 200,000 contract actions, totaling more than $150 billion each year. In the past few months, I've been out to visit industry in California, up in Rhode Island and Connecticut, in Philadelphia, and on Monday, I had the chance to visit the Gulf Coast. It's great to get out and see firsthand the critical link between industry and our warfighting advantage. The investments that we make in these partnerships, from our traditional industrial base, as well as with new partners, are essential to putting more players on the field and ensuring that we are ready to fight and win our nation's wars in this decade and beyond. I ask for your partnership, your energy, your passion, your expertise, and your focus in this effort. It's clear that our Navy plays an outsized role in achieving America's security objectives. The decisions we make and the actions we take today will determine the global maritime balance of power for decades to come. The stakes are high and the time is short. We must act with urgency. The Navy recognizes that speed matters, and the pace at which we design, procure, maintain, and sustain our force must accelerate. Taking a page from the interwar period, we need to unleash the creative power of the American sailor and of American industry. We must accelerate change now and rise to the challenge of this increasingly competitive environment. We need your ideas, your partnership, and most of all, your commitment. As we work to put more ready players on the field, we need to be agile and innovative in how we do business, and we need adequate, predictable, and reliable funding from Congress. And in all cases, we need to be flexible in our application of funding to keep pace with rapid technological advancements and operational needs. None of what I've described happens on its own. Keeping our Navy the most powerful Navy in the world requires an all-hands-on-deck effort. And as I said earlier, we view everything through a warfighting lens. And I'll ask that you keep this in mind as we work together to solve our most pressing challenges. So as I wrap up today, let me just say thank you. Thank you for your exceptional partnership. Thank you for helping us create and sustain warfighting advantage. And thank you for the teamwork that makes all of this possible. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
Jim, I have a question over here.
Hi, ma'am. Mallory Shelbourne with USNI News. There were just reports that broke that the administration's going to announce that they'll build a temporary port in Gaza to deliver humanitarian aid. I'm wondering if you could talk about what role the Navy might have there and how that would look.
Thanks for your question. I'm not going to speculate on any future announcements or future operations. What I can offer is that the Navy and the great warfighting force we have, as I said, we provide options every single day to the joint force. So I know that the Secretary of Defense, the administration are all looking at ways to get more humanitarian aid to Gaza, as you've seen recently through the humanitarian airdrops, and the Navy is ready to support every mission that we need to do to get after that.
Behind you, ma'am, on your left.
Thank you. John Harper with Defense Scoop. A couple months ago, the Defense Innovation Unit released a solicitation to meet a Navy operational need for small USV interceptors, which it's the way they phrased it, it sounded like it would essentially be kamikaze USVs. Can you talk about your vision for how the Navy could use those types of platforms in the future as you kind of look at this hybrid fleet and potentially acquiring platforms like that?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And I heard the Secretary talk a little bit before I came here, and we're very focused, and as I said in my own remarks, about the promise of unmanned technology and how we can integrate that to extend the lethality and the reach, really, of our conventionally manned platforms. So I think if you look out at some of the experimentation that we've been doing, we started out in Task Force 59, focusing on, how do we get better at maritime domain awareness, using unplanned platforms to do that. They've also done some experimentation with lethality in Task Force 59, again, extending that reach, extending the visibility that we can do and use our unmanned platforms for. Then we took that down into 4th Fleet, and you've been able to see them doing some additional work through their Flex series, again, using a multitude of unmanned platforms, whether it's one aerial vehicle providing targeting information, a surface vessel providing the lethality. There's a lot of good options here. So what I would like to say on that is I'm excited about all these concepts that we're putting into practice right now, and we're continuing to learn about what are those capabilities we need to have, and then how would we integrate them with the forces that we already have. I think the other thing to always remember is unmanned isn't really unmanned. The actual thing may be unmanned, but there's a lot of infrastructure and a lot of networks that have to be put in place to enable all those capabilities to really deliver on their promise. So that's a lot of the backbone of the work that we're doing as well, to understand how we can really get the most out of these platforms going forward. So I'm very excited about that. And we've got a lot of experimentation going on, a lot of concept development, and that is really taking a page from the interwar period. These are the problems we're trying to solve. How do we think about them differently? How do we start doing this concept development, fleet battle problem integration, and then how do we push that up into getting the technology into the hands of the warfighter as quickly as possible? And I'm all in on that.
Yes, ma'am. I think we have about 3.
Oh, I'm on the red light. Oh.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. It's me, ma'am. Normally, they don't even give me a mic. It's my conference. It's terrible. Quick thoughts. It clearly, forgive me for saying this, is clearly good cop, bad cop today. Secretary Dotoro delivered a message of basically pass the 2024 to Congress, pass the supplemental, but to the contractors, deliver what you promise on time and on schedule. From your perspective, one thing we didn't get a chance to talk to him about was the shipbuilding review that he's doing, that he's directed at Mr. Admiral Downey and Mr. Garrison. What, just generally speaking, kind of what was the trigger? What are you looking for in terms of the metrics that you're looking for during that review? And in a perfect world, what would be the kind of the types of corrective actions or speeding of schedules that would come out of that?
Okay, so the Secretary is running his review with RDA, Mr. Garrison, I think who you had here earlier today. So I am not read in fully to all the things that they're looking at or their findings. But what I can just say from my visits, into all the different shipyards right now is, again, this is really an all-hands-on-deck effort, right? Everyone is experiencing the same challenges. We're experiencing challenges in recruiting. Industry is facing challenges in workforce. We're really looking at expediting our parts and things that we know we need to increase the throughput of our submarines and ships in maintenance, and industry is looking to get after these supply chain challenges. So as we work together, these are the things, we're tackling the same challenges. So as we look at all of the investments that we're making in the industrial base, getting them in the right place, being able to measure our return on investments so we know if we did put those dollars in the right place. I think my goal is to put as much investment into that infrastructure so we can speed the throughput that we need, whether it's in production or whether it's in maintenance. So those are the kind of things I'm looking for. There's a big call to service out here. We got a call to service, bring people in the military, but also if you want to go work in a shipyard, I'm good with that. Just start contributing to our defense and our national security. That's everybody's job, because that's how our country prospers.
Admiral, over your left shoulder. Could you comment on the activities and scope of experimentation and additional development and testing that CTF 52 and 57, I believe it is, 59, have been doing out of the 5th Fleet with autonomous systems? It seems to me that they're doing a lot and have really advanced the ball and started the process of winnowing down the number of systems that are really solid candidates. And how does that work? How does it look from your perspective, and what can you tell us?
Yes, again, I'm really excited about the work done in CTF 59 and how we've been able to scale that now into 4th Fleet as well. And we're also doing experimentation in the Indo-Pacific. Of course, if you've seen the more recent transit of 4 of the USVs, all the way from San Diego, to Australia and back. I mean, there's a lot of good learning going on right now. So I look at these, Task Force 59 especially, there's also in 4th Fleet, these are learning laboratories where we get to bring kind of all comers to say, hey, these are the problems we're having. Get the people from industry with the warfighters so they can get a better understanding of what it is what is the problem we're trying to solve and what can we do to get after that. So, I know we kind of look at this in a multi-fit-up approach. We're in the experimentation and learning phase right now. That's really important. And when you look at any kind of technological leap, we got to spend the right amount of time doing that. And then we can move forward into the procurement and getting these things into the hands of the warfighters, again, as quickly as possible. Yep.
Admiral, I think we've got time for one more question, and I would pose this to you. What keeps you up at night? The one, the thing that just constantly on your mind that keeps you up at night.
Yeah, I think I've thought a lot about that question. And sometimes I always say it's the traffic on Massachusetts Avenue, which goes right by my house, because that's pretty loud. But, I do think it actually is this workforce. It is the workforce. I think, if I think about recruiting for ourselves, and I think, any other service chief would say the same thing, this is a big challenge. For us in the military, we need to have the warfighters with the training, the resources to be able to deliver that warfighting advantage. I always say that our people are our secret weapon, and we need to have those people. And industry needs to have those people too. So again, we really need to talk very strongly, and I would really enlist everybody. Like I say, everybody's a recruiter. Everyone is someone that works in national security because it's so important for us to be able to preserve the rules-based international order. We're not going to be able to do that without the people that we have. And again, I think workforce in general is what keeps me up at night.
Super. Thank you very much. I think we all need to give the Admiral a round of applause. The CNO has done herself proud.